This is an electron. It has mass, me, negative charge, and two states of angular momentum of 1/2 Planck's constant. That is mass, charge, spin. These properties all emerge from the bivector. Here I talk about mass. These properties have a geometrical classical origin as a spinning bivector. I have discussed how it leads to the geometric product, which is the basis of geometric algebra. It balances mass and rotational kinetic energy. The angle phi goes to zero, and all the kinetic energy converts into mass. That is the quantum state. An electron is all mass in isotropy. Increased spinning forms larger cones, which are measured by the angle between the axis and its cone in radians per second. The angle phi between the two cones is related, depends upon the type of particle. So for an electron, the angle theta in radians per second is the gauge divided by the time of one period of precession, which is t. We can evaluate the gauge because we know at theta equals pi/4, the time of precession, t sub e, is the distance traveled in one orbit, lambda, divided by the rim velocity, which I will show below is 0.03 times the speed of light. I also use the de Broglie wavelength for lambda. It gives the period at theta equals pi/4. Put it together and the angle is then divided by the ratio. We can calculate the rim velocity of an electron's cone at pi/4 using classical angular momentum. Planck's constant over 2 is the angular momentum, and the moment of inertia is me r squared. We use again the radius of the de Broglie wavelength, which is 1.94 times 10 to the minus 11 meters, and divide by 2 pi. And this leads to the rim velocity of 8.9 times 10 to the 6 meters per second, or 0.03 times the speed of light. We now arrive at the quantum domain that exists as locked energy composed of mass only in a state of even parity. It is easy to visualize how reflection is lost and the double helix of mass is formed. It is this state of even parity that defines the quantum state of the electron. That mass is locked energy. However, it is possible to force the blades to separate and unfurl, and in doing so, rotational kinetic energy and helicity return. Charge emerges as a Berry phase, and one blade of the boson aligns, indicating spin of up and down. Physicists often focus on the relativistic limit. This famous Lorentz factor tells us how time dilates as an object spins faster. As the rim speed approaches the speed of light, this factor would normally grow without bound, but the rim velocity is far from that limit, and the electron stops absorbing energy at the quantum limit of pi/4. This distinguishes the quantum limit or domain from the relativistic limit. We can quantify this more. The quantum domain of the electron occurs when all the rotational energy is confined as mass. For an electron, it exists only at theta equals pi/4. The intertwining of the two chiralities means the addition of more internal energy is not possible. All the kinetic energy is locked up. Once the system reaches this quantum limit, additional energy cannot be absorbed. Instead, additional energy propels the entire structure through space, shifting the dynamics from the internal confinement in the body-fixed frame to external forward propagation in the laboratory fixed frame. The relativistic limit, v rim going to c, can never be approached internally, thereby capping the rest mass. To show this, as the electron approaches its quantum domain, the total internal energy is given by the sum of the two axes, defining the effective mass. At the quantum domain of theta equals pi/4, the effective mass is given by the Lorentz factor times the internal rest mass. This establishes a geometric origin and physical mechanism for the quantum domain and relativistic limit. The Lorentz factor becomes a geometric measure of the quantum limit and differs between particles. In contrast to the Standard Model, which treats mass as intrinsic and structureless, the Bistandard Model shows the rest mass arises from a structured geometric state formed at the quantum boundary. The quantum limit occurs when the kinetic angular momentum locks into mass. Spin becomes quantized in a massive double helix and contains all the properties of the electron, which emerge as spin, mass, and charge. The system behaves no longer as a classical object, but as a quantum one. The quantum limit forms the ceiling, and the relativistic limit becomes irrelevant. In other words, quantum geometry stops the clock before Einstein does.